The Ooze is a Sega Genesis first-party game that was originally intended to be a pack-in launch title with the Sega Nomad. But like most Sega hardware from the time, everything about the Nomad from planning to execution was a complete failure. So, the Ooze was released separately in 1995. The story is told through a collection of still images, which relies on you to fill in the blanks. It's about a doctor who uncovers an evil plan that his employer has concocted, which forever goes undetailed, but he's caught in the process, and then injected with ooze, which makes him dissolve, so they can flush him down the toilet. But rather than killing him, it turns him into an ooze monster, and he goes out seeking revenge. It's actually very similar to the origin story behind Swamp Thing, except with less nature and more human waste. The game has a top-down view with very traditional elements. The levels are all start to finish, you don't need to collect anything or do anything besides just getting to the end to complete the stage. There are enemies and power-ups, but the way your character moves and controls is totally unique. The primary attack you have is Brilliant. It's an all-purpose tool that's mostly used for attacking, but you can use it to get at enemies around corners, trip switches from safety. It's really great. The only other option that you have is a projectile that uses your body as ammunition. What's interesting though is that your body is also your health meter. This means that everything you do in the game, moving, attacking, is done with your health meter. Unfortunately, this also means that when you're low on health, you have less options to get past obstacles. It would be like if, in Castlevania, the length of your whip were proportionate to your health bar. The enemies come in three types. The first is potentially dangerous but easily bypassed enemies who will kill you if you make the slightest mistake. The second is harmless enemies that just take up space. They can't kill you unless you help them, and they just really don't do anything. The third type of enemy is always a threat and they can easily kill you. They all have one thing in common, and that's that they have range. They are also the only enemies that can kill you in one shot, since their attack goes straight through your body and can hit your skull, which is an instant death. This actually happens a lot more than you would expect it to. You're going to be working your way back to the company to get revenge from the toxic dump, and everywhere you go is going to be a radioactive, mutant-infested hellhole. Giant worms, attack snails, eyeballs that shoot death bubbles. The place is so messed up that fire shoots out of the ground. Oh, and it's all built on top of a massive lake of radioactive waste. This just really bugs me, since the main character was captured and they attempted to kill him because he was going to expose the company as being criminal. Yet, everywhere around the company, and even the genetics lab where he likely worked, is a radioactive, mutant-infested death trap. It just seems like he could have done all of this by buying a disposable camera and snapping a few pictures on the way into work. The only difference is it would have cost him $3.99, and he wouldn't have been flushed down the toilet as a bucket of slime. The game's levels are broken into parts, like in Sonic, and distributed across 5 areas. They're all actually very well designed, and they have actual game secrets, things that you're not going to know about unless you accidentally stumble across them. Like on this screen, there's a warp to a hidden minigame, but there is no clue as to where it is. The minigame is, of course, dissolving rabbits in ooze. The warp points can also take you to special areas in the stages, but there's a problem with this. In order to find the warp points to get to those areas, it already requires a great deal of effort since there's no clues. In order to get back to the actual stage, you have to find another hidden warp point in the special area, and they can be almost as large as the stages themselves. It really doesn't help that you have to be absolutely precise to trigger a warp point either. This whole deal would be like if they gave you a Where's Waldo picture and told you to find Waldo. Eventually you would find Waldo, and you would feel pretty good about it. Then they would hand you this and tell you that you weren't allowed to leave until you solved it. They successfully took all of the reward out of finding a warp point or a hidden area and replaced it with frustration. You're going to die a lot in this game. I did, frequently, it was bad. Sometimes you're going to die for seemingly no apparent reason. Maybe it has something to do with the character being a blob that was never supposed to be alive in the first place. As the game goes on, the difficulty is going to ramp up quick. The situations will get much more difficult, and the slightest mistake will likely cause you to die. There's actually going to be situations where being too large, having too much health, is going to make certain things harder for you. One of the things that makes the game the most difficult is actually my favorite part of the game. Your character is made of liquid, and there are traps and obstacles designed to take advantage of this. Things like metal grates and holes in the floor that your character can flow through, or even inclines that make gravity your enemy. The traps that they made using these mechanics were amazing. In this one, I can't get away from the spinning blades by going uphill because of gravity, so I have to move through the blades, and then I can't get at the soldier because of the gas trap, or move back because of the blades. It made me feel helpless, but it was a well thought out trap. The Ooze has its faults. It's a little rushed, the warp points were an absolutely horrible idea, and the story was slapped together at the last minute, but that's really a benefit. But what they did right, they did very well. The aspects and mechanics around your character being made of liquid were amazing. The game is challenging, and it's fun. The level design is good. This is a good Genesis game. If you own a Genesis, I suggest you buy this. It's worth the $2 or $3, and if you own a Nomad, I think you're required to buy this. This is a fun and quirky game, and it's just a shame that it got lost at the end of the Genesis's life cycle.